Good morning. It's December 16th. This is To My Liberal Friends. We have two different presidents of the United States operating in different spheres and with different goals. This is almost unprecedented in U.S. history. Joe Biden technically is still the President of the United States until January 20th of next month. He's using these waning days to do everything he can to reward his friends and supporters and to thwart any actions the new president might want to take early in his administration. But as far as the public is concerned, he is almost invisible, and he's remained out of sight for the most part. On the other hand, we have the newly elected president, Donald Trump, and he's been everywhere in the public eye almost constantly. Since Trump is a former president, something that only happened one other time in our history, he is fully aware of the ability to capture the news. And as we speak right now, he's in the middle of a 2-hour press conference. Can you imagine Joe Biden or Kamala Harris doing an open-ended 2-hour press conference? Well, Trump went to the reopening of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Joe Biden went somewhere in Africa, and I dare anyone, without looking, tell me where he was on that continent. Joe Biden was in Paris and even seemed to be cordial with the incoming president. And while in Paris, Trump met with President Macron. He met with Zelensky and sat down with Prince William. Wave after wave of high-profile people have made the trip to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump. I think we all remember the brouhaha that resulted from Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski announcing they had traveled to the Trump outpost in Florida to meet with the incoming president. The Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau flew to Florida to meet with Trump. Trump has been on phone calls with Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico. The president of Argentina, Javier Milei, has made the trip to meet with Trump and his key advisors. We have to acknowledge that Trump has become the de facto president and Joe Biden is slowly fading into the background. World leaders are reacting to what Trump says and formulating their own policies with that in mind. Time magazine has declared him the person of the year, and that should be of no surprise to anyone other than the staff at Time. Joe Biden went to Rio de Janeiro for the G20 summit in mid-November. He'd anticipated this to be a valedictory tour as his anointed candidate Kamala Harris would assume the title. But the undercurrent of the conversation at the meetings were more about Donald Trump and the new administration. Biden was a secondary player, something unheard of before as a sitting president, and his demeanor indicated he was no longer in charge. He delivered a statement about the Amazon rainforest, and at 7 minutes it was his longest speech at the conference. It was capped off by a botched photo op that left Biden and a small handful of other leaders out of the picture, which only furthered the concept that the world had moved on from Joe Biden. I cannot remember when a photograph of the G20 leaders would leave out the President of the United States. At the same time, Donald Trump is reveling in the new attention. He comes to the presidency this time around much better prepared. In 2016, I don't think he thought he was going to win. And when he did, he was playing catch-up to staff his administration. And that led to a few bad choices on his part. He hired several retired generals without realizing they were all used to giving you orders and not taking them. And when it became apparent they were not going to support his agenda, he let them go. Having large egos, they could not admit any fault on their part and lashed out at Trump. With his win this past election, they're all left holding the proverbial bag, and their opinions are no longer of any value to anyone. Have you noticed you don't see the likes of John Kelly, H.R. McMaster, and Jim Mattis being interviewed on CNN and MSNBC these days? They're gone and forgotten. As we move towards January and the inauguration, it would be safe to say that Trump has not surpassed Biden, he has totally eclipsed him. Trump appears to be dictating policy of the United States, and he's not even been in office yet. If Biden has simply lost to Trump, he might still be in the fight, but once he was pushed aside by the elites within his own party, he lost all ability to command attention and use any authority. Trump, on the other hand, seems much calmer this time around. He exhibits the aura of a man in control, a man that knows where he's going and how to get there. He did not have a clear plan in action in 2016, but today he's had years to formulate his agenda and strategy and how to implement that agenda. On the world stage, Trump projects as a leader, while Biden never had that feeling among other leaders. Trump can be unpredictable, and that causes uncertainty among adversaries of the U.S. Biden was predictable, and so they acted with more assurance and very little fear. Finally, there's a new poll out this morning, and it shows a clear picture of what occurred during the election. The poll tells us that Democrats based their campaign on the wrong theme. They campaigned against Trump, calling him a threat to democracy, and by extension, Republicans a threat to democracy. They focused their campaign as a values campaign, that they should elect a government they could trust. What voters really wanted was an effective government, and on that issue, they trusted Donald Trump and Republicans. The poll showed that 69% of Americans feel that Trump will be able to bring change to the country, and that is what every pre-election poll showed voters wanted. That makes it clear as day why Trump has eclipsed Biden prior to the inauguration, and why foreign leaders and industry leaders of this nation are already turning to Trump. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the podcast, hit the subscribe button.